Some people like to refer to today's gospel story as Peter's conversion. Others call it Peter's confession. Peter's confession is appropriate, whether we understand confession to mean a declaration of faith or an admission of guilt. It is easy to see Jesus' triple question to Peter, "Do you love me?" And Peter's triple answer in the affirmative as Peter's confession of faith in Jesus. But what is not easy to see is how this dialogue represents Peter's confession of guilt. And to see the penitential aspect of what is going on here, we need to read the story in the original Greek translation. So, why did Jesus have to ask Peter 3 times whether he loved him? There is a correspondence with Peter's triple denial of Jesus. But that is not all. Because in English, when Jesus asks, "Do you love me?" and Peter responds, "Yes, I love you," it sounds okay. But in Greek, we find that Peter is not exactly responding to the very question Jesus is asking him. In the Greek Bible, there are 3 different words translated by the one English word love. First, there is eros, which means sensual or erotic love, the kind of love that leads to marriage. Erotic love lies in the senses and the emotions that find the object of love attractive. And then there is philia, which means the love of the likable, the admiration and devotion we have for a worthy person or thing, such as a love for a hero, love for parents and friends, and love of art. Likable love dwells in the mind that judges the object of love worthy of it. And finally, there is agape, which means self-sacrificing and unconditional love, even for a person who may not deserve it, and when there is nothing tangible to gain. Agape love is in the will. It is a decision. For example, we may think of the agape love for a cat. It is said that dogs have a way of returning affection and also of being useful to the owner. But cats are something else. So there is this popular story, a joke about the difference between a cat and a dog, which some of you might have heard before. A dog looks at the owner who feeds him and cares for him and says to himself, "He must be a god. My owner must be a god, so kind." Whereas a cat looks at his owner who feeds him and cares for him and says to himself, "I must be a god." Just the opposite. So, we may don't like cat, this kind of cat, but on the contrary, it can be a kind of a compliment to cat lovers. Some of you may be cat lovers. for the selfless and unconditional love for these so-called undeserving creatures. But the clearest example of the self-sacrificing and unconditional love we call agape is found, however, not in the cat-human relationship, but in the love that Jesus has for us, which make Him give up His life for us, undeserving creatures. Okay, back to our gospel story. So Jesus asked Peter, "Agapasme." In Greek, agapasme. Do you have agape love for me? Meaning, do you love me in such a manner as to sacrifice your life for me? And now Peter knows that he has not lived up to that standard of agape love. He knows that he had disowned Jesus 3 times in order to save his head, to save his life. And so, what does Peter answer? He answers, 𝘊𝘍𝘔, 𝘊𝘍𝘔. Yes, Lord, I have filial love for you. Meaning, yes, Lord, you know how much I like you and admire you. Actually, this is a confession of failure. Peter is saying to Jesus, yes, I like and admire you, but no, I'm not able, not now. I've not reached that stage yet to love you yet with that self-sacrificing love as you demand the way you love us. And so Jesus asked him a second time whether he has agape love for him, and Peter again replies that he has only filial love for him. Finally, Jesus does not wish to embarrass him any further. He just asks him, do you have filial love for me? And Peter answers, yes, I have filial love for you. Okay, that's it. Jesus accepts Peter the way he is. Even his filial love is good enough. So, sisters and brothers, the Peter we see here is not the loudmouth, boastful man who thought he was better than the other disciples. He is now a wiser, more humbler, who would not claim more than he can deliver. Peter's confession can be likened to that of the father of the possessed boy who confessed to Jesus, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. What Peter is saying is, I love you, help my lack of love. Only after years will he be converted completely. In today's gospel, he is told what will happen to him as his disciple. During the passion of Jesus, he did not have the courage to follow him, but one day he will give up his life for him. He will be imprisoned and died on the cross. So Jesus told him, when you were young, you put on your own belt and walk where you liked. But when you grow old, you will stretch out your hands and somebody else will put a belt around you and take you where you will rather not go. So sisters and brothers, in our masses or in our worship services, we may often sing hymns that profess our love for Jesus. Jesus, I surrender all, and so on. But Peter challenges us today to realize the hymns like all this only tell half of the story. The other half is that there is a part of us that does not love God, that denies Him when our life, when our interests, and when our well-being, when our future is at stake, we deny Him. So Peter's example invites us to bring this negative, dark, wounded side of us to God for healing. We need continuous healing and purification. So we said, Lord, I love you. Help my love for you. Make us love thee more and more. Amen.